Welcome to Drummer Mamas.
Happy.
You can sing, you can play keys, you can play guitar, you can play drums. How old were you when you got into drums?
I was quite late really. So I was about 13 when I started playing drums. And it was because we had a music class in my school where they brought a drum kit into school. That tells you the extent of our music department. It was like 29 kids gathered around a Casio keyboard for the majority of like our music classes. So yeah, so they told us that they were bringing a drum kit in, and it was kind of like like a show and tell kind of experience. And I remember seeing this drum kit and thinking, wow, what is this? And they were like, oh, would anyone like to have a go? And I ordinarily am um, I'm quite shy usually, but I just saw this drum kit and was like, oh my God, I need to have a go on this amazing looking instrument. And yeah, and it was just love at first play, really. And it was just like one of the scenes from the Muppets where animals just going mad, and I was like, this is my spirit instrument. So yeah, and that was kind of it from that point on, really.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about how that all kind of developed, and because the last time that I saw you, you were working at ACM,
Yeah, I
and I
was.
wondered like, what happened next? What happened after ACM?
Oh my gosh, that feels like another lifetime ago now, because I think I wasn't long out of uni, and then I moved down south because I went to uni in Leeds and then kind of came south. And I think I must have been about 24 maybe when I was working at ACM, and I actually got a job working in the admissions team. And I think I'd been looking for a job for ages post uni, and I really struggled to get anything. And I think it was one of those times where I was like, just take any job, and the music thing will slowly kind of carve its path. And, hopefully, if I work hard, I'll get opportunities. So I saw this job advertised, and it was for the admissions team at ACM, like recruitment. And I kind of thought to myself, well, at least I'll be in and around musicians, and I'll be talking to people who are passionate about music, and it'll all still be kind of alive on a daily basis. So yeah, so I took this job at Guildford, which then meant like a move as well, surreal. And um and one of the people that I was working with there then subsequently moved to ICMP in London and offered me a job there a couple of years later. So I kind of like followed him and went to work at ICMP. So then found myself in London, and that's kind of things started to take shape musically for me. Um, I was kind of like this tiny little fish in a massive pond, that was sort of overwhelmed with all the opportunity. And I met a girl from Northern Ireland who had come across and was living in London and was looking for someone to kind of jam with and maybe make a band with. And that was kind of my first real taste of anything sort of industry related when I was in London. So yeah, we kind of got together and we were just having jamming sessions and sort of writing sessions, and we really clicked just on a personal level as well as a musical level. Um, and there was just this great energy. It was really inspiring and really exciting when we were playing together. And that kind of, yeah, that sort of sparked that project really. Yeah, and it kind of went from there for me, I think.
And what about in terms of drumming education for yourself or lessons? What did that look like?
After that first day of seeing the drum kit, I came home to my dad and I was like, Dad, I really want to play drums. And you can imagine how excited my dad was about that. He was just like, oh, brilliant, another instrument you're going to have to pay for that's going to be really expensive and noisy and yay. Um, and, as 13-year-olds do and children do, the first thing you think is, oh God, this is a really expensive fad. And I had previously tried my hand at violin, which didn't go too well. And my dad had to fork out for that. So I think he was just like, take two. But slowly, I think he did realized that I really, really was dedicated and I really was passionate about the drums. And slowly it kind of changed his mindset because he was very much a you need to do English or maths or get a real job. So he bought me a drum kit which lived in our dining room for a while. Had, kind of like the terrible sort of rubber dampening pads on them. No joy at all for a long time. I convinced him to let me move it to the garage, and there was just many an evening spent in there with my hand just playing along to my favorite tracks, not thinking about, dynamics, not thinking about noise or neighbors or anything like that. So frequently I'd get like a bang on the garage door, like "shut up," from the neighbors. So yeah, and at that point, once he saw that I was really passionate about it, he got me some lessons at school. So I had drum lessons there um, for I think about 3 years it was, one-to-one lessons. I also did a little bit with the school band as well, but it was largely on like timpani because they didn't really have any kit parts, so it was sort of timp and percussion, which is not really the direction I wanted to go, but I really wanted to play drums with people. So I started off down that line. So I did a little bit there, but my theory wasn't great. And then and then my dad mentioned to some of his workmates that I'd started to play the drums. And one of his guitarist friends, who was kind of like a hobbyist guitarist, but really passionate and a really good player, was like, "Oh, I'm sort of looking for a drummer to kind of do a few gigs and things with. Would she be interested in making a band?" Um, so it was just the strangest thing ever when I was like 14 to be playing with this guy that was in his 40s, with my dad as like the biggest fan. Um, so yeah, I played my first ever like real gig down at the local pub called The Crown, which is just an old man's boozer. And it was completely by accident because the band that was supposed to be on there, their drummer didn't turn up. And my dad was like, "Oh, my daughter plays drums. My daughter plays drums. She'll be able to help you out." And yeah, you can imagine I was sat there just absolutely shitting myself, and just being thrown in at the deep end. So I played this gig with this random band that I'd never met before of like 30 something year old men just doing like rock covers, largely of songs I'd never heard before, like ZZ Top. And I made my way through the gig because they'd literally turn around to me and be like, "Go!" And I'd just play sort of 4/4, and then they'd be like, "Wait, stop now, kick drum, 1, 2." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." And that was the whole show. It just played like that. So it was absolutely bonkers. And that was like a baptism of fire for me. Um, yeah, just in at the deep end, basically.
When you were in London and you were working on, so that was Amber Sky that you talked about with was that the beginning of Amber Sky that you talked about with the girl
Oh no,
that you
so
met?
Amber Sky Drums is just like a bit of a kind of stage name that I've adopted.
Ah, okay, okay.
Cool. And I've just kind of used that as like a bit of an alias for music stuff.
Okay.
So the band with the girl from Northern Ireland was called Ruse. So yeah, so it was just the two of us, and it was kind of like we always got coined as the female royal blood, which whilst on the one side I was like, wow, that's really lovely because they're a great band, but equally really annoyed me just because
Yeah.
the way it was shaped. So yeah, so we were just a duo, like a rock duo.
I wanted to ask about your mindset or expectation of motherhood whilst being a drummer before you became a mum. And also, I wanted to see your mindset of the drum industry once you became a parent.
So I could talk about this topic forever. I just think, that there's not enough discussion around this topic for one. And so I've just turned 38 and I left having children to later life, largely because I was really unsure and quite scared of what the landscape looked like. For me personally, for women in music, parents in music, and I think a lot of the musicians I work with, a lot of the people I tour with are male, and I think that's probably a similar story for a lot of people, just because it's quite a male-dominated industry. And I was very much, especially in the last sort of 5 years, really trying to seek the visibility of people who were parents and balancing their career and maybe touring with being a parent and having a family. And for a long time, I just felt like I really had to dig hard to see that. And it kind of scared me. And I kind of had this feeling that if I can't be sure about what that looks like, then I'm not sure I'm confident enough to take that step, even though I really knew I wanted a family. Um, so it was a really big discussion between me and my partner, who at the time was a tour manager. So we were both in the music industry and both knew what it looked like. And yeah, and I think yeah, it was really daunting, and I just wish there had been more, especially mums that were visible, whether that was pregnant on stage, whether that was being within sort of touching distance, a friend of a friend, to have a really frank discussion with and say, look, can I kind of um, ask you some questions, or can I just, ask what a normal day looks like for you, or how you balance things? And I just feel like that wasn't there at all. And even since becoming a mum, I think you still have to dig. And it's not, maybe it's a British mentality, maybe it's an industry thing, maybe it's a bit of both. I feel like you really have to be quite forthcoming and ask people those questions before that information gets openly shared. And it's almost like this underground network. When you find it, it's like, oh, wow, there is a community there, and there's so many people that are willing to talk about it. But it's almost like this little underground community. It's like, you got children. Yeah, I have too. Like, how do you manage? I don't know. How do you do it? And it's so beautiful when you kind of find those people and you have these discussions, because it makes you feel like, oh, it was always possible, it was always there. I just needed to have that confidence and find these people. But I really, really wish that we could kind of bring that to the surface and make it so it was like, oh look, there's a pregnant person on stage there. Amazing, like you can totally do that. You can play whilst you're pregnant. Or oh look, they brought their kid to sound check. That's amazing, because had I seen that earlier, I really, really think I would have had kids much earlier. So it's not just me to think about, but I really think that would have accelerated the conversation and the decision about having them. Um, and even now, I really, really try to be visible with my experience. When I was pregnant, there were some shows with Blossoms that were coming up, and at the time I would have been, I think it was 7 months pregnant, was it? Uh, yeah, yeah, 7 months pregnant, and I really wanted to do them, and they were like, "Are you sure? How is that going to work? Is it going to be okay for your health?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really know. A, because I've never been pregnant before. B, because I've never really seen it to go, well, they did that, so that definitely works." So it's just kind of like a suck it and see thing. So we kind of agreed I was going to do these shows, and we'd work together, from a risk perspective and a health and safety of what I'd need and what they'd need. And we kind of pieced it together. And in my mind, the one thing that I was really, really, really want to do was be that point of visibility, to be like, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm on stage, and I've been looking for this the whole time and didn't see it. So here I am for you if you're thinking about it. And that was so important to me, and maybe like too important. I put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of be that beacon of information. And subsequently it all kind of went a little bit turbo, because I did the first show of what was supposed to be a run of five, and my waters broke during the show. So yeah, so I was, oh God, I've only got like one show into it, and that's my lot basically. So yeah, it was fun and games.
How did you deal with that? I mean, had they got like a kind of a plan B in place?
Mm. No, no. So I think we were also like jubilant that I'd been able to do the show, um because it was a first for Blossoms and their crew and their production to have someone on board that was pregnant. And it was a first for me. And I think it was, we felt like it was um not groundbreaking because that's ridiculous, like it's been done so many times before, but I think for us and in the near vicinity it felt quite groundbreaking in that way. And I think because of that we were all like, yeah, we're here, we're doing this, and no one had thought anything was going to go wrong, I guess. And yeah, I so I played the whole show, and it was Coventry Empire, and it was a really hot and sweaty show. Like everyone was visibly sweaty. Um, and I remember eh, coming off stage, none the wiser and just thinking, my God, I am really, really hot and very sweaty. And thinking like, wow, I wonder if it's like hormones or what. And luckily, I was due to get the train home because part of the plan was that I wasn't going to be on the tour bus because it was too dangerous. So I was going to be going home after each show. And for some of them, we'd arranged that my partner was going to drive me to and from. And for this particular show, because it was relatively close to home, one of my friends had come to watch the show and was driving me home. So I remember getting in the car and I was like, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm really hot. That was a really hot show and everything. And I got home at 1 a.m. My partner was already asleep, and I remember crawling into bed and thinking, I feel a bit strange, and I'm not really sure if this is normal, but I'm going to go to sleep and I'll, sort it all in the morning. And when I woke up in the morning, I was like, no, there's definitely something going on here. And I kind of said to my partner, like, I'm not really sure, but I think maybe my waters might have broke. Now at this point, I was only just 7 months pregnant, not even 7 months pregnant because my baby arrived 9 weeks early. So I wasn't even 7 months pregnant even. So none of us were thinking maybe the baby's on the way. Like not at all. I was in complete denial. I just thought it's a really sweaty show, something's going on, maybe let's go and get it checked out. Um, so we were due to have, I think, the next day off, and then there was a run of three shows, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So this was on the Tuesday, I think it was. So I'd woken up on the Wednesday morning, and my partner was like, "Why didn't you tell me when you got home? Why did you just crawl into bed and go to sleep?" So he was quite frustrated with me. So anyway, we went to the hospital, and I kind of had some checks, and they were like, "We can't conclusively tell whether it's your waters that have gone, but you're quite early on, so we're gonna observe you for like 48 hours. We want you to stay in just to make sure everything's okay. We're gonna check baby's happy and everything." And so I stayed in hospital, completely, as I said, in denial, messaging the lads being like, I've just got to have some checks, but I know that Leeds is on Friday. All being well, I should be able to sort of get out midday on the Friday and I'll be up for the show. Everything's fine. And I firmly believed that at the time.
Hold
Uh,
on. Were you not at all freaking out, stressed, like, how am I going to make the show? Or were you like, I got this, I'm going to make the show, it's fine? Where was your head at?
I honestly, at no point whatsoever did I think that I wouldn't be playing those shows. Um, it was ridiculous. When I look back on it, everyone, even some of my friends who have never had children or been pregnant, are like, even I knew that you were having the baby. And I was like, really? I was just in complete denial. And again, I think because I put so much pressure on being visible and all this and really wanting to do these shows, it meant like so much to me. I think I just didn't want to believe. And plus I was so early on that I think the alternative was if I am having the baby, this is really scary because it's so early. So yeah, so I didn't let myself believe at all. Um so yeah, so I kind of was like, I'm just under observation, but I'll be back with you on Friday for the lead show. It's all good. And the tour manager was like, okay, you just do whatever you need. And it was like, yeah, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So they kept me in for 48 hours for observation. Um, Everyone was wonderful. I can't say enough wonderful things about the NHS. They were magnificent and every other describing word in that capacity. So I did I very, very nearly got to the end of the 48 hours and everything was fine. Baby was happy. I was fine. I was just like, it's just a blip. It's all good. I'm going to be doing those shows and he's not coming out for another 2 months. It's all good. And on the morning that they were set to release me, that's when we started having some peaks and troughs on the chart. And I think there was a period of about 3 hours where I went from, yeah, I'm going to get to Leeds, I'm doing the show tonight, everything's great, to, oh my God, I'm having a baby nine weeks early. So yeah, it was like a lot to take in and like a really quick turnaround. But there was a point in the hospital where I got taken upstairs to basically like the delivery suite. And the midwife, she had to basically sit there and hold my hand and she was like, Colette, you have realized you're having contractions, haven't you? And I was like, what? And just like there was that moment where the penny dropped and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be playing these shows. Yeah, and it was just completely surreal. Like I really was in absolute denial. Yeah.
So then, how did it? What did you do? Did you just go, "Hey, boys, sorry"? And was there a backup person, or were they like, "We'll manage," or what? What happened?
Yeah, I think I literally sent a message going, "Hi everyone. So I'm having a baby. Uh, yeah, and I think it was in the order of I'm really sorry, I'm not going to make these final few shows because I'm having a baby." And I think they were probably like, what? Because at no point had I either understood the extent of it myself or communicated that to them. So no, there was like no backup plan or anything, but it's quite a niche circumstance. Um, at this time, I was still playing percussion and doing backing vocals for Blossoms, which was my initial role with them. And there was actually another percussionist, so their production manager plays a little bit of percussion with me as well at the time. Um, and I think because it's sort of supplementary, you know, if I was playing lead guitar, I think it'd be like, shit, we need to get a depth. But because it was sort of supplementary, the other percussion player was like, I've got you, I'll cover this. Not the BVs, but yeah, I think they were like, we'll just roll with what we've got. Um, because there wasn't time to do anything or call anyone or you know, so yeah, it was just a bit of a shock for everyone, I think.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, I've had a baby or I'm about to have a baby. I wonder if I will ever get that gig back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would be lying if I didn't say that that was really at the front of my mind. Um, yeah, and I think when he arrived, and because he arrived so early, and we were in the NICU for 5 weeks with him, um, you know, my head, I was complete tunnel vision. It was just, is he okay? Is everything going to be okay? Nothing exists outside of the three of us at the minute, um, and in a way, I think that was helpful because from the moment that I realised I was having a baby, it was like Blossoms Who. I know that sounds awful, but you know, it's like Music Who, Drums Who, Blossoms Who, gone, tunnel vision. Um, and then I think when the dust settled and when we realised that you know, our son was okay and medically okay and everything was sort of managed, we were able to come home. I think I started to have those reality thoughts creep back in of like, oh yeah, at some point I'm going to have to return to work and what's this going to look like? And yeah, I think really early on, because I had to have quite a complex C-section as well, I was thinking, you know, the physicality of it. I was thinking, am I going to be okay to A, play drums and do something that physical? And I was also teching at the time. So I was backline teching for other people, backline teching for myself on that gig. And at that time, I was like, I can't even imagine lifting a cup of tea, let alone anything heavier than that at the minute. So yeah, it was a real concern. But the amazing thing about it was at no point was there ever any kind of message or communication from the band or the crew that was anything other than completely supportive, that was, we're here when you're ready. And I think there was even a message quite early on that was like, this is your gig. you come back when you're ready. And that honestly, that meant the world to me. Even just that tiny little sentiment was like everything to me because being a session player, whilst I always felt part of the fold, there is never any guarantee because you are interchangeable and you are replaceable. And I think, you know that in that role. So it really was reassuring and so, so appreciated. Um, and I think the only other time that it ever kind of crossed my mind was when I was due to go back and start playing shows again. Um, I remember getting a message saying, do you play guitar or keys? And I was like, not really. I can get by, but depends what kind of level of competency we're talking here. Chopsticks, great, I'm in. Like Ludovico Einaudi, no. So it was kind of, it was like, why are you asking these questions? Um, and it had just been a creative change for them. They were looking to change the live production and looking to switch me from percussion to guitar and keys. And I'm definitely one of those guitarists that's just got by on like basic chords, like avoided an F basically all my life. So I was like, oh my God, are they going to ask me to play guitar? I'm not very good at guitar. Um, and for a slight second, there was oh my God, is this because maybe they don't want me back? And it was in no way anything they'd said or done. It was just completely my own imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, maybe this is the ticket out for them. I say I can't play guitar or keys, and they go, oh, well, that's what we need now, sorry. And that's honestly, this little voice in my head was like, that's it, that it's over for you. And they were so quick and lovely to reassure me. I was really honest. I was never gonna say like, yeah, I can do those things if I couldn't. I was really honest and I was like, look, I can get by, but I'm not a guitarist and I'm not a keys player, so what do you need? And they were so good and kind of like coached me through it and were like, this is what we'd like you to do. If you feel uncomfortable, just tell us this is not a deal breaker. Um, and honestly, what it did for me is it gave me like a new musical lease of life because it made me have to kind of brush up and learn new skills, which I almost questioned whether I could do at this point. Um, and it made me see the music and the songs and the set that we've been playing for years in a completely refreshing and new way, um, which was incredible. And yeah, and it was brilliant. It was actually probably the best thing for me. But at the time, I did have that little voice in my head that was like, nah, you're done for, this is it.
Can you tell us a bit about you joining Blossoms in the first place?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I had uh just come out of Ruse and I had met the tour manager of Blossoms through a friend who'd actually come to see us play at the Great Escape. So I'd met him and he sort of introduced himself and said, I look after this band called Blossoms. And then a short while after that, I got a message from him saying, Joe, the drummer, is looking for a drum tech. Are you available? Are you interested? And I'd kind of done bits and pieces and I sort of looked after my own stuff previously, but it wasn't something I'd done a huge amount of for other people. And I was sort of between gigs, and I am quite a drum nerd. Like I love drum gear and talking about it and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, why not? What a great opportunity. And they seemed lovely and everything I'd heard about them. I was like, yeah, sure. So I started working with them as Joe's drum tech. And my first shows with them were Reading and Leeds Festival, so it was like in at the deep end, um, and quite fast and furious. But they were just a brilliant, brilliant bunch, crew, band, everything, just so inviting and lovely, and it felt like a family setup. I didn't have that kind of, that feeling you sometimes get in the industry where you step into a gig and maybe it's a little bit prickly while everyone's figuring everyone out, and you're trying just kind of get the lay of the land. And there was none of that. It was just like I was a part of the furniture straight away and made me feel really comfortable. Um, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, and I did those couple of shows. And before I'd even really got into the swing of it or got to think of what it all looked like teching for them, um, they'd explained that they were looking to expand the live show and they were going more with like a talking heads kind of vision, more people on stage, nothing on track, everything live. And they were like, we've heard that you play sort of drums and sing. Would you be interested in maybe playing some percussion and doing backing vocals with us? And it was just a no-brainer because ultimately, deep down, I want to play and I'm a musician first and all the other things second. So I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I would love to. And it went from there. So I started playing, and I was still at the time looking after Joe. So I was still drum teching and playing percussion and doing backing vocals. So the days were pretty crazy. When we were on tour, I'd be up for loading, do the load in, kit up, everything polished and spruced, and you know, line check, sound check, play the show, strip everything down, load out, bed. So it was like a dusk till dawn kind of arrangement. So it was pretty heavy going, but equally, I got to do all these different elements of things I love. So yeah, it was just a no-brainer at the time.
I wondered if we could go back a little bit to when you were talking about being pregnant and playing. Could you find any information anywhere about like risks involved? Or, I mean, I know you talked about it with the team, but did you find any information out there at all for yourself?
I didn't, and I started asking around. I started asking if anyone had any pregnant friends or specifically, mum friends that had had children because I kind of wanted to know from a physical perspective as well of what my body was going to do and what I might be able to cope with. Um, and honestly, I had a few people that were like, "Oh yeah, you should speak to my friend," sort of blah blah, and there was a couple of people that I did reach out to, but it's quite strange as well if you don't know them on a personal basis to be like, "Hey, how are you doing? Cool. So I want to talk about when you were pregnant because it's a very personal experience." And so I was a little bit kind of worried to do that because I really didn't want to cross any boundaries or put anyone in any position of discomfort or seem nosy or, any of those other things that kind of come with it. So it was quite difficult and really like not forthcoming. I spoke to a couple of people who also had partners that were in the music industry, um, and sort of younger children that said, yeah, we both tour and we've got maybe the grandparents on both sides as like the village. And the level of touring they were doing maybe allowed them to bring their child every now and again, or maybe there was some elements in place for that. And I already knew that, Blossoms and the production we didn't have any of that in place, so I knew that wasn't going to be an option, to sort of bring the baby or anything like that. So it was hard trying to line up other people's experiences of anyone I did get to talk to with how that looked for me. So honestly, no, I got very little information out of it, and in a way, like I'm really proud because the production manager, the tour manager of Blossoms, and me, we kind of put a plan together, and none of us had any experience on this, or there was no kind of book that existed that was like, oh, okay, pregnancy 101, so you can do this, you can't do this. We were completely just feeling it out together, and I literally remember having a few questions, and the tour manager was like, well, do you think you'll need this, or do you think you could do this? And I was like, honestly, I just don't know because I can't predict what's going to happen in the pregnancy. I've never been pregnant before and I just have no clue. So I can't even give you any concrete insight so that you can make concrete decisions off the back of. We're just going to have to, you know, proceed with logic and reality and maybe put a few sort of A, B, and C plans in place. And that's kind of all we were able to do. But I think even in doing that, it just felt amazing that there was people that were so willing to have those conversations and be like, what do you need or what do you think you'll need? Um, and it really did restore my faith and confidence that this can work in any circumstance. It is just about the communication and it's just about the want to do that. I have subsequently, since having Jessie, spoken to a few musician friends who either are pregnant or have now had children. And again, somewhat underground, have come to me and said, I know that you've had a baby and you've done this. How did you do that? Or I'm really scared to tell the band in case they dep me or they don't want me. And it reinforces how lucky I was in my journey. But equally, like I've heard some really terrible things from people who have not been supported or who have been pushed out of projects and it just boggles my mind that in this day and age those things still happen. It's like, it's like a form of musical leprosy where it's like, oh, you can't do those things or that won't look good on stage and it just boggles my mind. It really does.
I mean, we obviously both agree with you because this is why we've created this podcast is to talk about it and for it to be more visible. And it really just resonates so much when you're talking about that you wanted to be truly visible being a mum on tour. And so I wanted to ask because I remember seeing that on your Instagram that when you went back out on tour, and I think did Jessie come to a sound check or something, and I just thought, come on, yes. And I wanted to know, can you tell us like a bit behind the scenes and how was it going out on tour for you?
Yeah, well, can I just say as well, I think it is incredible that you're doing this, and I'm so grateful to be talking to you, but I'm so grateful to you both for just raising awareness and having this discussion. Like it is just incredible, and I wish it was just happening all over the place. And from a tiny seed, something grows, doesn't it? And yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart, firstly. Um, yeah, so we did a 5 week tour in autumn last year, and I remember the band saying, we've got this tour coming up. How are you? How are you for it? Can you do it? No pressure if you can't. We know your circumstances have changed, but we would love for you to obviously come and do this tour. And I think I was like 50-50 excitement as always, like, yay, we're going on tour. And the other half of me was like dread of, is this possible now? Is it logistically possible now? Because our circumstances had completely changed. Um, and my partner, luckily, having worked in the music industry, he's not a tour manager anymore, but understands all of the logistics and everything, and especially from that perspective. And straight away, he was like, if you want to do this, we'll make it work, which is just incredible, to have that level of support and just be told, like, if you want to do this, we will make it work. Somehow, we don't know how, but we'll make it work. Firstly, was just amazing. Secondly, it was like, okay, I want to do this. Now, how does it look? Because I don't have any family nearby. Um, and my partner, his parents are about just under an hour away. And we have a couple of friends who are incredible that live locally that we're kind of willing to sort of help out, but not to any kind of extent of like, can you look after my child for a while? So first of all, we were like, what does our village look like? Do we have a village or is it a hamlet? So it was kind of like, let's figure that out first, figure who we could potentially call upon. Um, and then my partner was like, I'm going to make a spreadsheet, which honestly should have seen his eyes light up. He was like, right, straight on Excel, and basically diarised every single day of the tour. And there was a column for each of us. So me, him, and Jessie. And it was like where each of us is at any given point on those days. And it was like, do we have childcare that day? Who's the main caregiver? Which city are you in that day? Am I at work or am I at the office? And it was just meticulous. It was just so detailed. And honestly, I think it's the only way we could have done it. And it was just to throw everything at it, just go through everything, every detail, and pre-plan it. Um, and it felt like a mammoth task. And there was a few dates that we were like, we don't have childcare, or you've got a really important meeting, so you can't be the caregiver, and I'm not here. Or I've got a day off, I don't know, in Manchester, I'm going to have to get the train home, look after Jessie for that day, and then leave again that evening. It really was like a plan to the nth degree. But we did it. We managed to put it in place, and we called on grandparents who were incredible during that time and went out of their way to help us. We had a few sort of extended nursery days. We had a friend of a friend who was a retired childminder who was like, "I'll help you," and it was just incredible. We were so, so lucky, and I realised what an absolute privilege it was, first of all, to have those people around to help. Um, and I guess we're lucky that we have a child that didn't mind being passive for a bit as well, and was just like, yeah, this is cool, cool. I'll play with this different person today. So yeah, we managed to kind of put it all in place. It was still really daunting because it was so tight logistically that if anything went wrong, or if we got a call from nursery saying, oh, he's got a virus, can you take him home? Then it'd be like, shit, no, we can't. So it was quite scary. Um, but we just kind of navigated it on a day-to-day basis. And there were a few deviations, like the nursery scenario, and bits like that, but nothing that we didn't manage to cover. Um, so yeah, so I managed to do this tour, and I think the longest that I was away from home was 2 weeks in any kind of block. And then I think at the other 3 weeks, I did a week, came home for a day, a week, came home for a day, a week. Then Neil brought Jessie to soundcheck when we did the Birmingham show. And honestly, I had been talking about it non-stop since the start of the tour. I was like, Jessie's gonna come, Jessie's gonna come. And we had looked to see if he could have come to the show, but he was just too little, and the idea of him sitting through was just silly to even try and put together. So we were like, if he comes to soundcheck, um, the main things were I want him to see everything. I'd love for him to see us playing music up there, and I really want the band to meet him, and vice versa, because he's a part of this story. I was like, my waters literally broke on stage. He wanted to come out and meet them, so we're gonna make it happen. Yeah, so he came to soundcheck, and honestly, it is a memory that will just stay with me forever. It was just. I felt nervous. I felt nervous about what was he then? I think he was like 15, 16 months. I was nervous about my 16-month-old child coming to see me at work because it meant so much to me. And this is how silly it was. We'd spent a couple of weeks practicing with ear defenders for him because we'd bought him this little pair. We put them on, and he was like, absolutely not. They are coming straight off. And I was like, well, we can't do a sound check if you won't wear them. Like, that's not going to happen. So for days, we made it a game, and like, Mummy wears them, and then Jessie wears them, and Daddy wears them. And, we'd worked really hard on this until eventually he was like, okay, Jessie wears them. Um, and sort of worked up to all that. So yeah, when he came to sound check, it was just brilliant. And it felt like there was rock royalty in the room. It was just like everyone was like, Jessie! And he was like, I don't know why you're smiling at me, but yay! And it was just like a real organic joy. And I think in any circumstance, with whatever line of work you are, if there's a baby or a dog on the office, everyone's happy. And it was just like that. Everyone was like, yay, this has been a brilliant day. So yeah, that will honestly stay with me till the day I die. It was just the most perfect day.
Can I just say, I don't know if you're feeling this, Gem, but I feel quite emotional, like
Yeah.
listening to what you're saying, because I can feel how much that meant to you. And I also feel like you are standing up and you are really leading by example to others out there who are scared and who don't know how to do it. And you're just doing it from this beautiful place of love and
Yeah.
being passionate about my child and about what I do and just showing us it's possible. I don't know, it's beautiful. So thanks.
I wish, I really, really wish that, yeah, I'd had someone like you years ago, Colette, as well. It's really great that you're doing this now, that you're talking about it, because it does feel like there are so many people who are looking to hear exactly this. So thank you for telling us.
Thank you for asking me the questions and for inviting me on. Honestly, it's just, and this is what I mean. Like, I guess, this is a community, isn't it? And I really hope that we can get it like above ground and it be shouty rather than like underground and whispers.
I'm really happy from the last conversation we had with Hannah J. Welton as well, like hearing about how Prince, she talked about it with Prince, like, oh, we want to have a baby. Is that cool? And he was like, yes, this is going to be our baby. And to hear this as well about Blossoms, that everyone's been so supportive.
Yeah.
I'm just really, really excited that there are huge acts and artists who are totally supportive. We just don't know. Maybe we're not asking the right people, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. And I guess because it's not the usual conversation, it is quite it's quite like fear inducing because you just don't know until you talk about it and you don't know what kind of sort of reception you're going to get. And I think I'd love to hope that it's largely positive. We just need to ask the right questions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in the past it's been this thing of it has been underground because I'm scared I'm going to lose my job and I haven't seen it's possible. And I think now it's like, yeah, communicating in a really positive way and not being afraid and not hiding and being like, here I am, I'm pregnant, let's do this, and it can be an inclusive, joyous thing, which you've just shown is possible.
Yeah.
Well fucking done.
can I just ask, were you also, during this tour, were you also teching again, or were you performing purely in
So
that?
for this one, so the last tour that we did was my first tour, not teching, purely playing, which honestly, it changed so much for me because firstly, I had this overwhelming feeling of guilt on the majority of days where because I kind of like I always had like a foot in each camp and I'd largely travel on the crew bus. Sometimes I'd travel on the band bus, but because I was doing like load in and load out, it made more sense for me to travel on the crew bus. So the crew were I was like really close with them, like really close. We were all like family. Um, and on days off, I'd hang out with them, I'd hang out with the band, and I kind of felt so lucky because I was sort of, in between everything. And this was the first tour that I was just on the band bus, which was incredible because it really allowed me to have a deeper bond with the band and have more one-to-one time with them, which was incredible. And honestly, it was like a holiday, especially being a new mum. I started the tour and I was like, oh my God, I've had like a lie-in even on a tour bus. And now I've got time to like wash my face and put some makeup on and slowly I was like, this is incredible. And and at the time I was like, I kind of said to myself, part of my responsibility to my family in being able to do this tour and them, especially my partner, putting so many logistics in place for me to do this tour was that my promise to them was to come back in a better position than when I left because I'm not going to lie, I was tired. I'd been juggling everything. I'd been trying to do the prep and the learning for the tour whilst being a mum, all of that. And a selfish part of me was like, I'm going to have more time to myself on this tour. So I made sure that I had a gym subscription and I made sure that I really focused on like my nutrition. I know it sounds really stupid and everything and just, like boring rather than being like, yeah, I was getting hammered every night. But I really wanted to come back in like a better position, like stronger, better slept, more energy, like nourished, all of those things. So that was kind of my focus with any downtime of my day. So I'd get up and go to the gym. And it was incredible because I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something for me. And it was awesome. It really was. From a really selfish perspective, I loved every second of that, being able to invest in me. Um, and yeah, and I think it really did put me in this fantastic position to work really hard at my job, but equally, have a bit of me time and self-love and self-care and come back in a better position. And I think my partner even said to me, like when I came back, he was like, I'm really proud because I can just see what this tour's done for you, and you've come back so happy, and that's made me happy, and yeah, it just felt too good to be true, just like, how can I have all of these things? It just feels really greedy, but I want it all.
I don't think it's selfish at all. I think it's the thing to do. I think you're sensible. Like you're sensible, getting up, going to the gym, looking after your body, getting sleep. Because we're mothers now. Like if I don't know about you guys, but if I have too many drinks, I'm out for like 2 days plus.
That was me before I had children. Honestly, I'm not a big drinker as well. So yeah, it was just 1, 2 floor for me, just gone. Yeah, so I did have to definitely think about, the balance of it. I'm not saying I didn't go out at all, but I
Mhm.
definitely have to think about the balance of it all on this tour.
I wanted to ask about on the flip side, where you said that you had this guilt between the band and the crew. Can I ask you about mum guilt and how was that during
Yeah,
the tour?
absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes I think sometimes I feel slightly controversial because I feel like, and I need to word this correctly. Sometimes I feel, especially for mums, there is this added expectation that whenever you are away from your child, that should be sorrowful. And I didn't feel like that, nor did I ever think that I would. And I know that some people would probably find that controversial. And the reason I didn't feel like that is I think I I was brought up, as I said, with a dad in the military. He was away a lot. So it was usually my mum and my nan that were around on a day-to-day basis. And I never look back at that and think, oh, he was always away, or I didn't see that much of him. It was always oh, he was away working hard to, bring money home and make sure we had a roof over our head. And I always look back with such a pride and respect that he did that for us. And I very much want Jessie to feel the same about what I do. I never want there to be any kind of resentment of she wasn't around or she was working. And that is so important for me. But equally, I think it is so important that not that we are allowed, but that we have earned the right to, we've worked hard for the opportunities that we have. We should be able to feel pride and enjoyment with that without feeling the guilt of being away from our children. Um, you know, my partner is completely capable and wonderful and part of the parenting team. My child doesn't need me around to have those day-to-day elements fulfilled in his life. I would like to hope that I am, a cherry on the top and part of that partnership, but his dad has completely got it covered when I'm away, and he's got his grandparents and everyone around in the village that loves him and supports him. So whilst I very much missed him, I really, really, the depth of my core missed him every day that I wasn't at home. I really, really tried to tell myself that there should be no guilt or shame with that, because the reason that I was there was to build a better life for us and to bring money in. And that doesn't change my love for him or my want to be at home. This is just something that has to happen. And in part of that promise that I made of coming back in a better place, I think for me, that was kind of the sacrifice of I I'm building something for me and myself to make me a better musician, a better partner, a better mum. And I really truly believe that. And I feel that we should be allowed to feel pride in that rather than feel guilty for not being there with a child all the time. And I do know and even have some people within my friendship group that I know don't necessarily agree with me on that. And I completely respect that. But for me, my role as a mum and hopefully my family, I feel that that's the right thing for us. And that's how I feel about it. But it doesn't make it any easier, especially from the outside in. And I'm sure there are people that maybe looked at me and thought, "Where's her child?" or "Why is he not at the shows?" Or and everyone's allowed their opinion, but it's easy when you're looking into a goldfish bowl, isn't it?
Yes. Ah, I'm so pleased for you. I'm really, really glad that it all came together and worked out.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I really appreciate that as well.
I could chat for ages. I've
Yeah.
loved this, truly. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Um, do you watch Bluey? And if so, tell us your favourite episode.
Oh my gosh. Favorite episode. I'll tell you, the one element that always gets me giggling is when they're grannies. And it's like, "I'll help you across the road, dear." It just cracks me up, and I just hope that when I am granny age, that I still embody that juvenile kind of comedy of Bluey. Because I would challenge anyone to watch Bluey and just not smile or laugh their way through it. Because it is utterly fantastic. And Jessie loves to kind of stand and dance to the title music. It was like a thing in our household where we'd rewind it and be like, "Jessie, Jessie," and like, and even that in itself just sparks so much joy.
Yeah, you do. Agree. I'm
Yeah.
like the girls. I've got two girls, so 5 and 8, and now they do like Bluey, but sometimes they're into this thing. Oh, miraculous. Do you
Oh,
know
yeah.
this? Oh
Yeah.
man,
But
they're obsessed.
Freaks me out.
Obsessed. It
I
freaks me
find some of
out.
it a bit scary.
Yeah, it's
Do you
like,
not find it?
what do they call it? Da, 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 you get turned into a evil being. I'm probably going to cut all of this out of the podcast, but and I'm like, Bluey, anyone? No, hello, Bluey. Come on, I want to
is
watch
it
it.
is it on par with like In the Night Gardens vibes or?
No, I feel like it's more like superheroes, right?
Oh,
And then there's like this other understory of like one superhero fancies the other superhero, and then there's this evil one, and he's got these little things. I can't remember what they're called. Do you know what they're called?
I've
Do you
got
ever?
no idea. I
There's like
try
a
and
little
also avoid it a little bit.
little butterfly thing that can get into you, and then you're turned evil.
Yeah,
It's a bit,
it's
oh,
dark. It is dark.
I'm
but
so going to Google this as soon as we get off the call.
just don't do it. But I'm like anything for not that.
Not
Get some
that.
Bluey on, please.
Yeah. I'm gonna make my children watch Bluey until they're 30. We're gonna we're just gonna watch Bluey.
Every age, there's a solution. Pop on
There is.
Bluey. Done.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sometimes makes me feel inadequate. Sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say there'd be no wars in the world if everyone just watched Bluey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. No, I do often watch it and think like, oh, I really should be like those parents. And I'm like, they're cartoon dogs.
I think that a lot. Like they're always like, hey, let's bingo, let's play this game, or da, 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 or I never see them, never see them lose their shit.
No, but the
Yeah.
mum, I did like it how there's that one episode where Bingo is like, "Mum, why are you in the cupboard or whatever?" And she's like, "Sometimes as a mother, you just need to take a little break or something." She says it better than that, but I was like, yes.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please do share and give us a 5-star rating. That will help people to find us in future. Until next time, take care.